Which one, the second one does it? Does that like?
Oh, these are just different examples. So these are just different things you could do. I probably wouldn't actually put this in Tuner. They're just examples of things that you could do. Okay, did anyone figure out this password confirmation one? This one's a bit trickier.
I think usually you have to put in the password 2 times and then match.
Yeah, more specifically, you have to have 2 fields on the form. It's going to look for one input with the name of password, and then another one with the name password confirmation. So it's going to look for those 2 input fields. Those both will need to exist for this thing to pass. You don't have to just do it on password. Like if you do validates banana, then you would have one input with name equals banana and one input with name equals banana confirmation. But it's always going to look for 2 fields, one of which has underscore confirmation. Yeah, Samir.
This is a question about the documentation.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they have this a text field that a person comma that email.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I've never seen a text field where you have 2 different values there. I tried to do it in our example, it's put text field for the name, and I do it there. So I don't know what that is.
Let's take a look. Let's see. Confirmation. So this thing right here. Oh, yeah. So it's not the same field. It's just 2 different fields. This would generate exactly what I'm talking about over here. It would generate 2 inputs right next to each other.
Right, but what would each input look?
Just like what I have over here. One of them is going to be input, well, almost just like what I have over here. We have strong params going on here. So it would actually be person and person. It would look like that. Except, with input in front of it. That's what that would create. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was saying you have the form and then you have text field.
Oh, yeah. So,
Try to do a comma between 2 different.
Gotcha. So this is, we haven't used this before. We've just been using form for. You don't have to use form for everything, because with that you have to do f.textfield or whatever it is. And that sort of links everything together. Like if you have, if this was an edit form and you did f.textfield, if the person had an email address, it would already be filled in there for them. This doesn't really link it to that form. You could put this anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a form. And so there's also like text area tag and like checkbox tag and everything. Cool. Any other questions about this one? You guys probably aren't going to see that a whole lot. Devise uses it actually, but we're letting Devise worry about it. We're not worrying about it. How about this age numericality one? I just want to know what this says in English. Like if you were to tell me what this does in English. Yeah. No, not just numericality. Like if you had to say what this requirement is in English, what it's looking for, what would you say?
No, the last one says you have to order it.
Yeah. So the age has to, the number of the age has to be greater than or equal to 13. This one is saying that age has to be a number. So if you type in, Sasquatch for your name, this isn't going to work. Only integer is actually sort of a lie. It also allows floats. It just has to be some kind of a number. It has to be some kind of a number that is greater than or equal to 13. How about the exclusion one? Bryce, you going to tell me what this exclusion says?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly. So the country can't be North Korea. And notice that that's an array, so just like with inclusion, we could put however many things you want in there. And I think this is the last one. So the difference between these two, so this one has onCreate, this one does not. Can anyone tell me what the difference there is? Yeah, Dimitri. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So if you took out one integer, could you write like the letter 1 or 2 and just translate to?
Try it. I don't even know. Maybe.
And if you already have numerically, like why do you need one integer? I would assume you already know what you're talking about.
You know, maybe I'm getting confused. It could be that you can do numericality true, and that just means it has to be an integer or a float. But I'm pretty sure that only integer also allows floats. So I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. Or you could go back and look. It's just in the documentation right there.
I think it's actually int only integer. I think floats was like only integer. I don't know. But I think it's right.
No, what?
I think only integers doesn't allow floats.
Ah, it does only allow integers? That makes a lot more sense. Okay, cool. So I must have been getting that mixed up with just numericality. So only integer does, in fact, only allow integers, which would make a lot more sense than it allowing floats as well. Thank you. So who can tell me what onCreate does here? This line and this line are exactly the same, except this one has onCreate. Yeah, go.
Basically, you need to like put your password, confirm your password, only when you're creating the password.
That's exactly right. This validation is only gonna run on create. That is, it's only gonna check that validation when you're first creating this user in this case, but it might be artist, whatever. It's only gonna check for the password confirmation when you're creating it. So when you're updating it or doing something else to it, it's not gonna run that validation. Only when you're creating it. And then this allow nil, allow blank. So the difference between those is probably not something we're actually going to run into very often. And so I'm not really going to talk about it too much, except to say that it's a lot like presence true. It's just making sure that you have something entered in that field. But what I would like to ask you guys about is why do we need this allow blank true here on this line? Why not just have SSN uniqueness true? Why is that there? Any thoughts? Yeah, Bryce? Yep, that's exactly right. And so if you have one person leave it blank and then another person tries to leave it blank, it's going to get rejected, saying that, nope, there's already someone with an SSN of blank in there, so it's not unique anymore. So putting in this allow blank true, that sort of makes it an optional field. If you don't put anything in there, that's fine. But if you do put something in there, then it has to be unique from every other social security number in the database. Like, can this one go before that? Oh, you mean can allow nil go before uniqueness true? Yeah, the order doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, good question. You know what? Let's try that. I don't think that's even in the lesson plan. Here, I'll do name presence true, message, stuff from here. And then I'll try creating this thing. Oh, guess we can't do it with that one. Huh. What context was it in? For exclusion?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what it looks like, or rather, can you slack out the example? Okay, there we go. So you sent me this. Aha, I got it. Okay, so let's try an exclusion then. So exclusion in this weird %W thing, that is the exact same thing as writing www.us C-A-A-P, in an array. What this does is it takes these words and it splits them along their spaces and it turns them into an array. So it's just a shorter way of doing that. So I'll just use this up here. And then message sup Samir. Let's get it working this time. Okay, so I'm going to try creating an artist with the name www. That should fail. And gives me verification failed, name sup Samir. So that's where the message goes. Ordinarily, if we got rid of this, it would just say, like, cannot be in list, I think. Let's try it. Name is reserved. Cool. And so this is a way of just overriding that is reserved with whatever we want the message to be. Does that answer your question? Cool. We'll go back to where we were, because with present's true. All right, other questions? Yes, but we're not talking about that just yet. We will in a bit. Okay, cool. So Rails has a whole bunch of built-in validations, what we've seen right here. You can also make your own validations. So I'm going to write a really stupid one that you would never actually use. And feel free to code along with me if you want, but again, it's a stupid validation you would never actually use. So validate, break, Billy, raise, achy, breaky, heart. Okay, then I'm going to create a method called break, Billy, raise, achy, breaky, heart. All right, and so what this is going to do is it's going to check to see if the artist's name is Billy Ray Cyrus, and if it is, it's going to reject the artist. The validation isn't going to pass. So that would look something like if self.name equals Billy Ray Cyrus, then errors.add name cannot be Billy Ray Cyrus because he doesn't qualify as an artist. All right, there we go. And so now when I type in Billy Ray Cyrus in here, I get name cannot be Billy Ray Cyrus because he doesn't qualify as an artist. So what that did was it, well, this part is pretty obvious. Like if the name of this particular artist is Billy Ray Cyrus, then do whatever is in here. To talk about the message first, you put this field here so that it sort of knows what field it is that went wrong. So for instance, if I was doing this with photo URL, then I would put photo URL down here. And then this would reject if I tried to submit a photo URL that was Billy Ray Cyrus. But I'm not going to do that. We're just going to do that with name. And then you can make up your own error message over here. This errors.add thing, that just determines what goes over here. That just determines what the error message is for this particular validation. So that's what making your own validation looks like. You can make as many as you want. So you could also do like, I don't know, is Antarctica. So then that would be like diff is Antarctican if self.nationality equals Antarctica. And then I could do errors.add nationality can't be Antarctica. You can have as many of these as you want. That's a really stupid example. But you can have as many as you want. Samir.
So syntax is not validated.
Right. Yeah, so that's pretty weird. For custom validations, it's validate. So information. For custom validations, it's validate. And for standard validations, the ones that come built in, it's validates. And notice too that with validate, Well, with validates, we would put a name in here. With validate, we do not. With validate, we just put the name of the method we want. Other questions? I don't really have anything against Billy Ray Cyrus. It was just the first thing that came to mind for whatever reason. All right, so just a quick sort of unrelated check. This validation isn't going to be triggered if I do Billy Ray Cyrus in all lowercase. It's not case sensitive. So now that works perfectly fine. So how could I change this validation so that it is case sensitive? So that whether or not you're writing it in all caps, all lowercase, whatever, it's still going to reject. Say what? Well, case sensitive, I don't think is actually a Ruby method, but you're on the right track. Downcase, let's try that. Self.name.downcase. So it's going to take whatever they write, it's going to convert it to all lowercase, and it's going to ask if that is equal to Billy Ray Cyrus. So if I type in all caps, Billy Ray Cyrus, it's going to convert all that to lowercase and should still throw an error at me. And there it is. Yeah, right. All right, so that's pretty much it for actually writing validations. So any questions about writing validations? Yeah, Dimitri. Yeah, and we'll talk about that later on. We're going to use Flash for that. And you can do it in different ways as well, but for now we're just going to use Flash. Anything else? All right, so what I'd like you guys to do next is, well, actually, so I was going to say do this along with me, but it's only going to work if you actually have this validation in here. Nah, never mind. This is a stupid validation. Let's go back to validates. Whoops. Validates name presence true. So make sure your artist model looks like this. Things to watch out for, make sure you have validates instead of validate. So make sure your artist model looks like that, and then I want you to open up the Rails console. So to do that, you can leave this running, leave Rails running. If you're on a Mac, just hit Command-T, and it'll open a new tab. And then Rails C. C for console. Damn you, QuickTime. QuickTime. All right, there we go. You should get something like that. Is anyone's Rails console not opening up for some reason? Anyone have any trubs? No? Cool. Okay, so I'm going off book here because in the lesson plan it's doing stuff with Billy Ray Cyrus, and we're not doing stuff with Billy Ray Cyrus here. Let's do, so we're going to create an artist, save it to a variable called blanky, and then that artist is going to have a name of artist.new name empty string. So this is the first thing I'm putting in there. Blanky equals artist.new, and then the name is empty string. All right, so there's one thing. Let's also do namey equals artist.new, and name is, I don't know, what name should this guy have? No, name is a terrible name. What? Blanky. Oh, no, that's going to get so confusing. Soda. All right, soda it is. All right, so namey, artist.new, name is soda. All right, cool. So we have these two different things. So what happens, let me scooch this over here. Check out what happens if I do blanky.valid with a question mark, and I do namey.valid. One is false, one is true. Thoughts as to what .valid is doing? Yeah, exactly. Runs through the validations. Blanky has no name. Its name is not present, and therefore valid fails. It doesn't pass the validations. We get this false thing. Whereas namey does have a name, the name of soda, which passes the validations, so dot valid is true. Now check out what happens when I do blanky dot errors dot full messages and namey dot errors dot full messages. All right, so this is a way of getting all of the error messages out of that. And we're actually going to use this a pretty good amount. This is something that gets used a lot to show what the different errors are with a particular thing that was submitted, is this dot errors dot full messages thing. Namey doesn't have any error messages because namey doesn't have any errors, so there aren't any messages. But Blanky does have an error, hence he has an error message, or she, either way. Cool. Questions about that?
If it's an array, if you had something like nationality, there's nothing still, and it wasn't 1 to 3, we broke that because it's an array.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure. I haven't tried that before, so why don't I do that now? Validates nationality. What is it? Inclusion, I think. Inclusion USA. Okay, so I'm going to do this all over again. Blanky equals artist dot, what am I doing? Dot new name blank and nationality North Korea. Okay, and now if I do blanky dot valid, I should get false. And if I do blanky dot errors full messages, nope, I only get the first one. So my thinking for that is that if one thing fails, then it only shows that one. If one thing fails the validation, then it only returns that one. So of course, then it's like, well, why is this thing an array? And I'll be honest, I don't actually know. So I have to play around with that a bit more. But I'm usually only worried about the very first error message anyway. I want to show what happens, go away thing. I'm going to show something else that's kind of weird. Artist.new name is blank. And now I'm going to do blanky.errors full messages. Wait, what? Blanky no longer has any error messages. Well, we know Blanky totally would have failed the validations. Any thoughts as to why there aren't any error messages? Yeah, but what do you mean I didn't validate it? It's right there in the code. Say what? Yeah. Well, not just unsafe. There are, let's see. Let's say like 9 different methods on which it actually validates stuff. Those methods are .save, .save, .create, .create, .update, .update. We'll talk about what these exclamation marks mean in a mo. And then I think I'm forgetting one. Maybe it's only 7. There we go. Okay, I lied. It's not 9. I guess it's only 7. There's 1 or more. All right, let me scan my notes real quick. Nope, just 7. Okay, so these are the 7 methods that run validations. If you haven't run any of these, the validations have not been run yet. And therefore, it doesn't have any error messages. So Blanky's only going to have error messages after running one of those. So if I do blanky.save, we'll talk about that in a second, but now I should get blanky.errors full messages, and there should be something in there. Because now it's actually run a validation. So this is important to know that .new is not on this list. .new does not run validations. Everything else does trigger the validations. Any questions? Oh, yeah, good question. Can you ask me that in a little bit, actually? When we talk about question marks, when I start talking about banging stuff, then ask me about the question marks. because bang is another word for exclamation mark in programming. All right, so with all this done, and there we go. One thing that you may see is something like this. I'm going to slack it out just so you have it. And I'll also put it in here. Actually, no. I'll put it in the form. Put it right here. And now I'm going to go back to the artist controller. Yeah, looks good. And I'm going to do something that fails. I'm just going to submit a blank in here. When I do that, I should get validation failed, name can't be blank. Damn, I forgot about that. Okay, well, we'll come back to that in a second. But just looking at this, what was I hoping that this would do? No, sorry, I just mean like this line specifically right here. What should that line do? Yeah, it'll just show the errors that happen. So there are sort of two different ways to show errors. One is with Flash, the other is with this thing. Generally speaking, you're only going to use Flash to show good stuff happening. So you can use Flash Alert to show bad stuff happening, but usually Flash is just reserved for good stuff because you have this thing you can use for bad stuff. You have this thing you can use for validation errors. So Flash generally isn't used to show validation errors. Instead, people use this thing, and they use it exactly like this. They put it exactly like this in their views or wherever. Cool. So that's sort of it for validations and all that stuff. We'll talk about the bang methods in just a sec. But are there any questions about validations, about this part? Cool. Well, why don't we take 5 then? Well, I'll be stingy. Let's take 4 and come back at 4. And then we'll keep on going.